Hello everyone and welcome to Use Your Spanish. Bienvenidos a Use Your Spanish. In today's video, we are going to continue with our series of Vocabulario Básico. This is our 9th episode, and in this opportunity, I'm going to teach you how to say the time in Spanish. This is a video oriented or mainly oriented to beginners. So if you are a more advanced student, I advise you to go to my channel, and there you will find other series of videos that will help you to improve your Spanish. And that's it. If you are ready, then let's get started. As I said before, we are going to learn how to say the time in Spanish. ¿Cómo decir la hora en español? ¿Sabes cómo decir la hora en español? If you don't know how to say the time in Spanish, I am going to teach you how you can do it. But first, let's learn some vocabulary. The most important thing that we need when we are talking about time is el reloj. El reloj. With this device or with this machine, we are able to know what time it is. Okay? El reloj. In Spanish, we use the word reloj for both the clock and the watch. The one that you use in your wrist and the one that you put on the wall. In Spanish, both of them are called reloj. The plural is relojes. Relojes. Okay? This is a little bit of a strange word for us also to pronounce sometimes because it ends on a J. There are not so many words that end in J in our language, but this is one of them. Okay? So then when we talk about el reloj, we have something very important that is las agujas del reloj. Las agujas del reloj. In some countries, mainly in Latin America, we also call them las manecillas del reloj. Okay? Las manecillas del reloj. So these are the needles or the hands. In English, they are called clock hands, and they are the ones that help us to identify what time it is. Okay? So we have three main clock hands. The first one is el segundero. El segundero, which is the one that measures the seconds. Okay? El segundero marca los segundos. El segundero marca los segundos. Then we have el minutero. El minutero, which is the one that shows the minutes. El minutero marca los minutos. El minutero marca los minutos. And finally, we have the shortest one, el horario. El horario, which is the one that shows the hours. Okay? El horario marca las horas. El horario marca las horas. So now you know all of them. Okay, now, what is the most important question we need to know when we want to ask someone the time? Well, it is ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? And then the answer will depend on the time. In Spanish, we differentiate between the singular and the plural, okay? So when we are talking about one, we have to say es la una. In this case, es la una en punto. It's 1 o'clock, okay? But then with the rest of the numbers, we have to start saying son las dos en punto. En este caso, in this case. Son las dos en punto. So these are the two main differences and the thing that you need to keep in mind when you are going to give the time in Spanish. With one, you have to start with es la, and with the rest of the numbers, you have to start with son las. Okay? So now we are going to have a look at each one of the numbers and how we say the time in Spanish. Okay? So we are going to take the example with number 2. All of the possibilities with number 2. So let's get started. son las 2:05. Son las 2:05. If it was with number 1, we would say es la 1:05. Next one. In this case, we would say son las 2:10. Son las 2:10. If it was with number 1, we would say es la 1:10. Es la 1:10. Next one. Son las 2:15. Son las 2:15. We can also say son las 2:15. Son las 2:15. If we were talking about number 1, we would say es la 1:15. Es la 1:15. O es la 1:15. Es la 1:15. Okay? Next one. In this case, we would say son las 2:20. Son las 2:20. If we were talking about number 1, we would say es la 1:20. Es la 1:20. Next one. In this case, we say son las 2:25. Son las 2:25. If we were talking about number 1, we would say es la 1:25. Es la 1:25. Next one. In this case, we would say son las 2:30 o son las 2:30. Son las 2:30 o son las 2:30. If we were talking about number 1, we would say es la 1:30 o es la 1:30. Okay, before we continue with the rest of the numbers, I would like to remind you to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my new videos. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so that you receive a notification every single time that I upload a new video. Also, I remind you that you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and you can visit my website www.useyourspanish.com. You can also find on my channel a recent video that I shared in which I teach you the name of numbers, the colors, days, and months in Spanish. So if you are interested, you can just click this link or you can watch it at the end of this video. Let's continue with the rest of our lesson. Okay, before we start, I have to let you know that in the second half of an hour, you have the possibility to say the time in 2 different ways. And I am going to show you those 2 different ways because actually the second way is the one that people use the most in Spain. With the next number, we would say normally son las 2:35. Son las 2:35. But then there is another option, which is son las 3:25. Son las 3:25. There are still 25 minutes remaining to 3. That is what it literally means, okay? So in the case of number 1, we would say es la 1:35 o son las 2:25. Next one. In this case, we would say son las 2:40, son las 2:40, but we can also say son las 3:20, son las 3:20. In the case of number 1, we would say es la 1:40, es la 1:40, o son las 2:20, las 2:20. Next one. In this case, we would say son las 2:45, son las 2:45, but then we can also say son las 3:15. In this case, we don't really use the number. We just say son las 3:15. In the case of number 1, we would say es la 1:45, es la 1:45, o son las 2:15. Okay? The next one, we would say son las 2:50, son las 2:50. But then we can also say son las 3 menos 10. Son las 3 menos 10. In the case of number 1, we would say es la 1:50, es la 1:50, o son las 2 menos 10. Next one. In this case, we would say son las 2:55, son las 2:55, but we can also say son las 3 menos 5, son las 3 menos 5. In the case of number 1, we would say es la 1:55, es la 1:55, o son las 2 menos 5, son las 2 menos 5. And finally, one more time, we would say son las 3 en punto, son las 3 en punto. And again, I remind you, in the case of number 1, we would say es la 1 en punto, but we already said that before. Okay, now I would like to share with you some of the questions that we can use to ask the time, but in a formal way. Preguntas formales para pedir la hora. Perdone, ¿me puede dar la hora? Perdone, ¿me puede dar la hora? You can also say, perdone, ¿podría darme la hora? Perdone, ¿podría darme la hora? Another option would be, disculpe, ¿me puede decir qué hora es? Disculpe, ¿me puede decir qué hora es? O, disculpe, ¿podría decirme qué hora es? Disculpe, ¿podría decirme qué hora es? Okay, now I would like to practice a little bit so that you can train yourself to say the time in Spanish in the right way, okay? So let's practice a little bit. Vamos a practicar. So, ¿qué hora es? I will give you a couple of seconds to think the answer. You have two options here also. The first one would be es la 1:15. Es la 1:15, which is the most common way. But you have another option, and is la 1:15. Es la 1:15. Did you get it right? Okay, let's keep practicing. Next one. Disculpe, ¿podría decirme qué hora es? Then you have to say, son las 4:30. Son las 4:30. Or you can also say, son las 4:30. Son las 4:30. Next one. Perdone, ¿podría decirme qué hora es? Then you have to answer, son las 6:45. Son las 6:45. O son las 7 menos cuarto. Son las 7 menos cuarto. Next one. Disculpe, ¿me podría dar la hora? This one is a little bit tricky. The first option is son las 12:40. Son las 12:40. But the next option would be es la 1:20. Es la 1:20. Okay? Next one. Disculpe, ¿podría decirme qué hora es? Son las 12:50. Son las 12:50. Or you can say, es la 1:10. Es la 1:10. Okay, and that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have found it useful. I hope that now you can ask the time correctly and you can also say the time correctly in Spanish. If you like this video, please don't forget to give us a like. Don't forget to share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and visit my website www.useyourspanish.com. Gracias por ver este video. Espero verte pronto en una nueva lección. Hasta pronto.